Welcome back to the channel, hopefully, or welcome new. My name is the Archon philosopher, otherwise known as Andrew Toohey. I'm a Canadian trained philosopher, I suppose, and I stumbled across coherent metaphysics. I encourage people to get the book, check the link, I guess, and pick it up and try to make your way through it. It's startling, and I think a lot of this comes from the experiment known as the delayed choice quantum eraser experiment of 1999. What happened in this experiment is that we had what can be called backward causation, reverse causation, but it wasn't really. Something else is going on here, and this is what I outline in the book. But I'll try to describe it as a compendium, I guess, a complement to the book. The delayed choice quantum eraser experiment opened up this location, and it's almost like a telescope or some way to see, and this location is right beside us, right here, right now. And it's where you are, it's right beside you, just as thoroughly and completely as time is right beside you right now, going through you, all around you, however we want to describe this in our language. But this location was opened up, and what happened is they split an entangled photon of light, and they sent half of it, and it arrived first. And then they sent the other half through a double slit experiment, where the choice was delayed until after the first half had arrived. And what happens in the double slit experiment, and again we'll go over this, is that a choice is made to either create a double bar or leave it as a waveform interference pattern. And so what we find in the delayed half of the experiment is that, okay, if we have a double slit, if we have a double bar through the double slit experiment, then previously what landed first is a double bar. And if we have a waveform interference pattern after, then we have a waveform interference pattern before. But it landed before the choice was made. So the question is, how did it know the future? And, well, the question of knowledge, again, is, I think, a category error. We're not talking about a knowledge issue. This is just the way our universe works. I may put it as, we may ask the question, what causes one moment of time to be after or before another moment of time? Well, this just doesn't seem to make sense. This is just the way time works. And what we're seeing is this is just the way the universe works. There is this location. It is here. We can access it any time we like in this experiment, and it looks into the future. Now, it doesn't look much into the future currently. Our technology is maybe developing, maybe it's longer than it was. It was at 8 nanoseconds, but who knows what it is now. But it doesn't matter. That information was there, and in principle, I guess we can take a look at it if we can get in there quickly enough. But let's imagine that there is a type of consciousness, a sentient creature, who can look into that location and see just a few seconds into the future. It sees itself in the future and then collapses that universal wave function and then walks into that universe. It's there. This is, overall, what I'm going to describe as the metaphysics of a multi-consciousness universe. The problem here is that humans have no experience and no narratives, no history at all of doing anything like this. So it's probably not human. And yet we're not going to go for any type of supernatural event, because this is not supernatural. This is happening anytime we do the experiment. It's happening anywhere. You can set the experiment up here or there, it doesn't matter. But what we have is a different type of consciousness, and we see an analogy in life where a colorblind person, they can't see, say, a red door and a green wall, and so they don't think there's anything there because they just cannot see it. And in the same way, the way our brain is designed, our categories of thought are designed with our forms of understanding, let's say time, space, materiality, all the laws of physical nature, They just don't allow us to see it. But that does not mean that all sentient creatures have the same forms of understanding that humans do. And so what we're looking at here is a delayed choice quantum eraser experiment is opening up for humans to see that there is a location which can look into the future. And once there's information, then there is ultimately a conscious creature which can use and create and benefit from that information. And if there's information, then there can be a collapse of a wave function. And this goes, I suppose, towards the multiverse theory, but what we're seeing is a wave of probability. This is precisely what was talked about in quantum mechanics and what recently the D-wave scientist Ed Ladinsky, I think I butchered his name, but he came out and said that quantum mechanics applies on the macro, and other people have said the same. And so what we're imagining is that each choice that you make, as long as there's information about that choice, creates a universe. And in this location, which is right beside us, right now, we cannot see it, but there is information there about what's going to happen just a little bit in the future. And if we could access that, we could see into the future. I'm going to give a little bit of an analogy here that let's imagine ourselves in a room, sitting at a long table, and we're talking to the person next to us, and suddenly the leg of our chair breaks and we fall on the floor. So there's the situation. So let's put it into the delayed choice quantum eraser framework. And so we're off in a separate room looking into the future. We see ourselves sitting in the chair. We see the chair leg break and we fall to the floor. Then a few seconds later we find ourselves in the big room sitting on the chair leg breaks, we fall on the floor. There's the delayed choice quantum eraser experiment. Now let's imagine something else. Let's imagine that we're in this room looking into the future, and we see ourselves sitting in the chair leg breaks, we fall on the floor. We say, I don't like that. I'm going to change it. So suddenly we find ourselves in the room, sitting in the chair leg does not break. We finish our conversation with the person next to us. And so let's imagine back at the beginning of the universe, some sentient creature imagines itself in the universe, says, oh, I like that universe, and then collapses the wave function and finds itself in the universe that it had just imagined. That is the delayed choice quantum eraser experiment with the double slit in there, collapsing a universe from that location, which I'm going to refer to throughout this series as the overhang of pre-time. And this overhang of pre-time is consistently available to us through this experiment. However, given a different epistemological structure, we might just be able to access it, but we don't have that structure, and it's unlikely that we could do enough tiddling with the brain to make that happen. But I am going to put down right here that there is a sentient creature that has done that, and we exist in that universe that was collapsed in this wave function collapse. We are in this universe, and we're here for the ride. It's not a bad universe, but it's not our universe. And yet, we seem to be able to function very well. And this is one of the objectives of this series, is to let us know as humans that we are able to sustainably live in this universe and to function very well. It's a great universe, and it's our home, and I suppose we have as much right to belong here as any other sentient creature. But we're going to look at how in history, and more in the science of this, how we have, I think, detailed the presence of this entity and allies of this entity, and how it's probably not in a lot of people's and others' interest to have this information out there. Just saying. Anyway, this is the short, brief synopsis of why there is something rather than nothing. I got right to the point, but We'll go into detail about what all this means later. Thank you all, and see you next time. Take care.